Chapter 2. The Swine's Mud. "What do you mean you smelled it before?" said the king impatiently. All the talk of gnomes and undines had irritated him in the extreme. It was nonsense, fairy talk. His ancestors might have believed in all that, but he was a modern king and he found it outlandish. "I'm guessing it's from Vilmos," said Razel, paying no attention to the king's tone. "The only place Swinfen grows is in the executioner's field, behind his home. Can't you smell it?" The king sniffed the air and grimaced with recognition. Chloe looked at her husband fearfully. The only servant in the room was Jabade. Harmon jerked his head towards the potted flowers and shrubs, and Jabade began searching. Within minutes, he drew out a squat and ugly plant in a pot. Its hairy, pungent leaves were shaped like a swine's ear, and it smelled like a pig in a muddy bog. "Swinfen, how did that get in here?" said Harmon, glaring at Jabade as he handed him the pot. Sure enough, it bore Vilmos's mark. The executioner's son, Vilmos, fell into a jealous rage the day Chloe married you, said Razel. First, she humiliated him when she beat him in the midsummer duels. Then she insulted him when he asked her to marry him. "What did you say to him?" said Harmon. Chloe, her cheeks scarlet, didn't answer. She reached over and took the baby from Razel. "Tell me what you said," demanded Harmon. "I said he stank of death," said Chloe. "No doubt this seemed cruel to Vilmos, especially when he found out you were already engaged, Chloe," said Razel. Turning to Harmon, who was pacing the room with a face like cracked earth, she said, "After your wedding, your first decree was that there should be no more executions. That left Vilmos without a job." "I won't have people killed for wrongdoing," said Harmon, his eyes flashing hard and silvery. "Everyone deserves the chance to mend their ways." "An enlightened point of view. But your decision left a humiliated man without the job he spent his life preparing for. The sad fact is that Vilmos hates you both. If he takes revenge by stealing your child," Razel dared not say when to the king, "you must trust your daughter will return to you." "No, promise she won't be taken," said Chloe, her voice unsteady. Razel could not make the promise. Understanding the wise woman's silence, Chloe began to cry, cuddling her baby to her, as though someone were already reaching out to snatch her away. "Get out!" roared Harmon suddenly, so loudly that even the crowd outside could hear. The baby woke and cried in fright. Harmon took the pot of Swinfen and hurled it through the open window. It smashed on the ground below, spilling lumps of soil and fleshy green plant. "Get out and take your predictions with you," repeated the king. "Get away from my daughter with your magic." "No," cried Chloe, grasping Razel's hand. "Tell us how to protect her." "Name her for peace," muttered Razel. "Her name must begin with the clean letter I. You know what it is." She pulled her hand away and strode towards the door. The sylvan flew from Razel's shoulder to the windowsill, the ribbons on his feet swishing over the baby's skin. "Irina," said Chloe to the crying baby. "Irina. Shh, darling." At the door, Razel turned and said, "With respect, you don't know what you're dealing with, Harmon. When Vilmos was a boy, his father sent him to the wizards of Nartesk with body parts of the dead to make evil magic. The wizards paid the boy sacks of gold for these unholy parcels. Who knows what they taught him? Just go, spat the king. You think I'm full of fairy nonsense, continued Razel, unperturbed, but evil is every bit as real as good. If you think otherwise, you're the one living in fairyland. Once outside the castle, Razel smelled the putrid waft of Swinfen again from the broken heap under the window. It overpowered what the wise woman would have preferred to remember, the delicate fragrance of the newborn baby. The crowd wouldn't part for her now. They heard the king's roar through the open window, and they'd seen the pot fly out. They surged around the wise woman, angry and uneasy. In the distance, she caught sight of someone running away. Was it Vilmos? Sorceress, hissed one woman. Doomsayer. Beware that woman, said a father to his children. She's a witch with mischief behind her ears. Someone shoved their foot in front of Razel, and she tripped and fell to her bony knees. The pain was sharp. She pulled herself up quickly, knowing she could be trampled by the angry crowd if she wasn't careful. She uttered a bird-like call so piercing that many put their hands to their ears. Suddenly, the sky filled with ravens. The dark birds flew down to the wise woman's shoulders and hovered behind and in front of her, swooping and pecking at the people till they backed away. With a shushing sound, Razel called on the breeze, and the little winds began to push gently against the crowd, working with the ravens. She hurried out of the city towards the narrow track that meandered through the open grasslands to the forest. Thank you, friends, she whispered. The hare, still hiding behind a cart, suddenly bounded through the masses of human legs and followed Razel, taking refuge beneath her cloak. His warm fur was a comfort to the wise woman. A boy prince called Andor, peeking out from behind the curtain of his covered coach, saw the hare's mad dash. Surprised, he rubbed his eyes and clutched his father's hand in excitement. Look, Papa, a hare. What's that, son? Said King Nicholas of the neighbouring kingdom of Pavel. He glanced over his shoulder. I don't see anything. Andor and his father had come to Ragnar Castle with a gift for the newborn princess. Andor was astonished that no one else seemed to have seen the hare. How wild and lovely he was, scurrying among the crowd with his long ears and round eyes. The boy watched, fascinated, as the hare disappeared beneath the felt cloak of the witch, causing the uproar. How magical she must be, Andor thought, to have birds and hares surround her like that. The air was luminous above the witch's head. Andor stared intently at that sparkling veil of light and saw, or thought he saw, a white star-like shape appear then vanish above her. In the Queen's bedchamber, Chloe and Harmon could hear the crowd jeering. Harmon cleared his throat, his temper leaving as quickly as it had come. He turned away from his wife and the baby. As always, he was ashamed of his outburst, but too proud to admit it. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something red. An apple was growing on the tiny tree that Razel had touched. It grew, round and rosy, before his very eyes, until its frail stem snapped, and the little fruit fell to the floor. Astonished, the king picked it up and took a bite. It was sour, but good, and the juice soaked his taste buds. He took a deep breath and looked at the apple thoughtfully. "Let the witch's prediction about Vilmos be known," he told his manservant Jabade. "Just as a bit of gossip, you know. The more people watching out for Vilmos, the better." Later that day, Jabade, obeying the king's request, told the second cook. The second cook was a great chatterbox, as Jabade knew well. She told the miller who sold her the flour, and she also told the farmer who sold her the queen's golden pears. The farmer told the bone sculptor who made the king's belt buckles and the queen's hair clips. The bone sculptor told the candle maker who came once a fortnight in his wagon peddling the best quality candles in the kingdom, or so he liked to say. Of course, the candle maker told everyone he sold a candle to about Raisel's prediction as he travelled to the east, where the realm had its border with Pavel, and north to the border of the narrow lands, and back south to Ragnar City. By nightfall, people far and wide knew about Vilmos.